Thank you. Mr. President, when parents send their kids to school, they rightfully expect that they will be safe and protected. Parents expect their kids to bring home knowledge, not polio. They expect them to share stories, not measles. They expect them to get smart, not smallpox. And the reality is this has been the case for decades because we have had vaccines to safely and efficiently keep students protected against these terrible, terrible diseases. Unfortunately, there's an extreme movement that relies on conspiracy theories. It's trying to overturn common sense, science, vaccination guidelines, and make children vulnerable to life-threatening illnesses. Earlier this month, Florida announced it was rolling back a long-standing vaccine requirement, long-standing vaccine requirements for schools, requirements that have prevented the death of more than 1 million children in the last 30 years alone. 1 million children. Think about that number. Protecting them from devastating diseases like measles, polio, whooping cough. Removing these safeguards will cost kids lives, and there's no other way of putting it. Parents will bury their children. It'll bring us back to a time before vaccines when parents prayed their child would be spared from polio so they wouldn't have to spend the rest of their life in an iron lung. That's not freedom. Living inside of an iron lung because someone refused to get a vaccine is anything but being free. As my dad used to say, when you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And these extreme policies will lead people to die as a result. But let's also be clear. This is not what parents want. In fact, more than 80% of parents support vaccine requirements for schools to prevent diseases like polio, measles, to prevent diseases like mumps, rubella, smallpox, hepatitis, and a number of other diseases that we don't even think about them anymore on a daily basis. And that support crosses party lines. In fact, 3/4 of Republican parents agree schools should require vaccines for measles and polio, including 73% of parents who identify themselves with the MAGA movement. Even my Republican colleagues have spoken up about this, saying, quote, "It's a horrible idea, it's bad policy." I'm going to quote again, "Vaccinations have proven to be helpful in preventing the spread of diseases like measles, polio, and other things." This is a Republican. It says, "My children are vaccinated. My grandchildren are vaccinated. I don't agree with that," end quote. So these extreme policies are not only way out of step with science, they're way out of step with the very families that these Florida politicians claim to represent. And what's happening in Florida is not an isolated case. And what happens there, it won't stay there. It's part of a broader effort to weaken our nation's health. Disease knows no boundary and is unfortunately an equal opportunity predator. And at the heart of this dangerous misinformation campaign are people like the Secretary of Health and Human Services, RFK Jr., who has built a career by spreading lies about vaccines and spreading rhetoric that has been debunked time and time again by doctors and scientists. In fact, he fired just recently the director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention because she allegedly stood up to his anti-vax efforts. And since then, the CDC has made it practically impossible for healthy adults in many states to receive the COVID-19 vaccination if they so choose. If they so choose. This goes beyond getting rid of COVID vaccine mandates. It actually imposes a new Republican mandate that no one can receive the vaccine, and it does not matter even if they want to. This goes above and beyond forcing everyone to bend to their will. It's not freedom. It's imposing their radical beliefs on everyone else. And because of Secretary Kennedy's willingness to push lies and conspiracies that will hurt our health, the Senate must speak out against what he's doing and what Florida is doing and make it clear we support making vaccines accessible, and that we support making sure our children are vaccinated against polio, smallpox, smallpox, rubella, and other life-threatening illnesses. Washington Republicans cannot and should not stay silent while extremists in Washington and in Florida are trying to make it more likely that children won't receive critical vaccines. It's why I introduced a resolution opposing these extreme policies, reaffirming something the overwhelming majority of Americans already know, and this is this: vaccines save lives. Vaccines protect kids. Vaccines protect every American, and every American deserves the freedom to access them. This is about the safety of our children. It's about making sure diseases like polio and smallpox remain eradicated. It's about standing up for the overwhelming majority of parents, Republican, Democrat, Independent alike, who want their children just protected from these horrific, terrible illnesses. So today I'm calling on my colleagues in the Senate to join me in this effort. Let's send a strong bipartisan message that we reject this extreme, dangerous agenda. So, if all my Republican colleagues disagree with what Florida is doing, let's do more than just give a disapproving statement to reporters. They have something they can do about it. I'm going to give them the opportunity, Washington Republicans, to do something to protect our kids. So let's pass my resolution by unanimous consent right now to protect the children of the United States. So, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of S-Res 389, which was submitted earlier today. Further, that the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, and that the motions to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Ohio.
Reserving the right to object, let me say to my colleague from Nevada that neither one of us represent Florida. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution is clear that the federal government has a limited set of powers, and most powers are delegated to the states. And I think we should let decisions for the people of Florida be made by the elected representatives of the people of Florida. But let me just also address real quickly some of the statements that were just made about children going to school. It's decently ironic, given that during COVID, kids were prevented from going to school because schools were closed. Schools were closed, in some cases, up to a year and a half. If we look at the epidemic of childhood violence, youth violence in this country, we can directly trace that to the enormous mistakes made during COVID by locking kids up, by forcing children to get a COVID vaccine that we now know objectively absolutely should not have been given to children. Let me make also another point. You can't, on one side, bemoan the termination of a CDC director, and on the other side, having not voted to confirm said CDC director. So when you voted no, you can't also say, well, why was that person fired? Because you wouldn't have hired him in the first place. That doesn't make any sense. Let me just make one final point. This is very important. Any vaccine that any parent wants to get is available. What RFK is saying, our Secretary of Health is saying, is we're not going to mandate that people have to put things into their body that they choose not to put in their body. In fact, I believe over my lifetime, what I've seen the Democrats say is my body, my choice. I guess that only applies when you're murdering babies. It's very simple. If we don't have sovereignty over what goes in our body, we are not free people. Now, I believe that people should make a choice, an educated choice. I have faith in the American people, that they can make the decisions that they feel are right for them. And for that reason, I object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Nevada.
you know, this is very disappointing. We know that childhood disease has been eradicated in so many ways because of these vaccinations. And we often know that the way that they are available or the way they're paid for relies on the recommendations from the United States government. And so we do put children at risk, and we are saying in the case of COVID that people may not get them. But I remain disappointed. This is really disappointing. By balking my resolution, Washington Republicans are saying you're okay with extreme policies that can make vaccinations inaccessible, unaffordable, roll back vaccine requirements for school children, and put us all at risk for diseases like measles, polio, and smallpox to our families, to our communities, to those most vulnerable. I don't believe this is a partisan issue. Disease is an equal opportunity predator. Diagnosis can change your life this fast. So it isn't partisan. The overwhelming majority of parents, including 3/4 of Republicans, support school vaccine requirements. Blocking my resolution ignores parents, ignores science, and it puts kids at risk. And before some Washington Republicans try to insinuate that that because they didn't personally block this resolution, they may support it. It has been introduced, and everyone is welcome to support it today. So if you believe school children should be able to access vaccines, you can co-sponsor my resolution today. I yield back.